was a good man from what I seen. I wish I had a good man like Papoose. Remy might now want Papoose back, and he done moved in with his new girlfriend. Now she gotta play the hand that she picked. That man wait.
For Remy, it was the start of a storm that would shape her to her very core, even if it seemed like just another day. Remy was a formidable force in the rap industry, strong, self-reliant, and unstoppable. She had worked hard to gain her position, but on this specific day, none of it was true. He waited for her as though she were imprisoned in a place from which she was unable to escape. In the shadows, something was simmering, waiting to explode, yet the streets of New York were their normal chaotic selves, with horns honking and people rushing through life. That would be enough to shield her from the fallout from a single rash choice. She had just started a new relationship that initially appeared like a dream. Vanessa, her girlfriend, was confident, attractive, and vibrant. Everything Remy had been searching for. They were inseparable at first, riding high on love and desire, but as is sometimes the case, the magic eventually wore off. Small disagreements grew louder until they became full-fledged disputes. Struggling to strike a balance between affection and control, Remy was unable to manage the situation. Although she wasn't the kind to remain silent, Vanessa maintained the tension between them by pushing back when she felt compelled to. A simple mistake or maybe too many beers led to the altercation that changed everything. In a time she could not remember, she was betrayed by the same hands that had handled microphones to fire crowds and compose words that inspired. In a moment of fury, Remy's hands reached Vanessa's throat, leaving a mark that would be impossible for either of them to ignore. Another dispute, but this time it struck closer to home for Remy, bringing back old scars she had believed were healed along with tension and jealousy. Things took a bad turn before any of them could stop it, and her rage made her judgment hazy. Tonight, her painstakingly constructed armor burst open, exposing the raw, unbridled rage that had been simmering inside of her for years. She had always taken pride in keeping things under control, being the strong one, and being able to handle life's challenges with poise and accuracy. Remy violently pushed Vanessa against the wall, enclosing her in a cramped space that seemed to be closing in on her. Remy stood with her hands still outstretched and her chest rising and falling with the force of her breath as the sound of Vanessa's body slamming into the drywall seemed to slow down for a second time. However, the storm that had been brewing for so long, the fury, rage, and frustration, was all that mattered at that moment. With her eyes wide with fear and her breath coming in sharp gasps, Vanessa strained to stay upright, her hands clutching the wall. In an instant, Remy's steely, unblinking gaze appeared to be looking through Vanessa instead of at her, and her eyes briefly flashed with confusion. She didn't comprehend or know what Remy was getting at, but the words felt like a blow, and all she knew was that she had never seen her like this before, never seen her so utterly enraged, so different from the person she believed to be her. Her heart pounded in her chest as she attempted to grasp the situation, get in touch with Remy, and penetrate the wall of rage that appeared to. Although it was their first altercation, Remy had never lost control to this extent before. There was a heavy, dangerous energy that seemed to envelop them both, and Vanessa could see and feel it in the air. It was oppressive. This is not what you're prepared for. Remy spat, her voice as cold as ice. It was not a warning, not a cry for comprehension. It was raw, unadulterated rage, and she was no longer thinking, no longer trying to make sense of what was happening. Vanessa was the unlucky victim of that storm dot, and she was simply responding to the situation, and her emotions were running wild rather than trying to think out how to save it. People needed to know what was real because sometimes Remy would continue talking while her voice grew harsher and more threatening. When Vanessa realized how dangerous this was and how powerless she was confined, the dread took over, and her body began to quiver uncontrollably. Her veins throbbed with desperation as she struggled to. She tried to free herself from Remy's unrelenting grip, but it didn't work since Remy was too strong. Vanessa could only struggle, her movements growing more frenzied as the terrible weight of the situation crushed her spirit, until finally she let out a scream. However, it was more than simply a cry. It was a devastating sound that ripped through the atmosphere, the sound of someone who had never thought that their world would collapse or that they would end up in this situation. Remy's breath seized in her throat, and her chest tightened as Vanessa's scream cut through her like a dagger. It was the sound of someone hurting, someone who was afraid for their life, and Remy's rage suddenly melted away, and she became acutely aware. The realization that she had crossed a line that could not be uncrossed caused her mind to swirl as the seriousness of the situation hit in, and she could already see the repercussions unfolding before her eyes. Breathing heavily, Vanessa stumbled back and gripped her throat. She was having trouble keeping her balance, and her hands were shaking. "You can't hurt me, Remy," she said in a barely audible whisper, and Remy paused as the words hit her like a physical blow. They reverberated in her head, cutting through the aged facade that had impaired her judgment. She had hurt someone she cared about, and she was shocked by what she had just done. Remy felt terrible and ashamed, and her heart was thumping in her. She couldn't offer an apology or explanation to make things right, as the harm had already occurred. Is right. Still trembling, Vanessa picked up her phone off the table with shaky hands and dialed 911. "Please send help. I need help," she said in a frantic, desperate tone, and a few minutes later, sirens were blaring and the wail of them. With the flashing lights piercing the darkness like a blinding storm, Remy stood motionless as the officers arrived. She was immediately arrested, placed in handcuffs, and allowed to leave the apartment within days after the officers' presence served as a reminder of how serious the situation had just been. She was constantly reminded of the prison she had created for herself by the cold metal of the shackles digging into her wrists. Vanessa had always taken pride in her strength and ability to keep things under control, but now that she had lost everything, she stood in the doorway, trembling with terror and horror as she saw Remy being brought away. She wanted to yell and yell at Remy for what she had done, but she was unable to find the right words. All she could do was stand there and feel a rush of emptiness. The gravity of the situation set in when the police car disappeared into the night. A dispute had devolved into something far more sinister, and there was no going back. Vanessa and Remy would never be the same. Vanessa secretly understood that the truth of what had transpired couldn't be undone, even though she wanted to shout, cry, or chase after Remy. She had trusted Remy, but the darkness that had engulfed her made that love seem like a faint memory. When Remy, Massachusetts, the same lady who had climbed from the streets to dominate the rap game, found herself in such a sad circumstance, the entire world watched in disbelief. Even though Remy's attorneys fought to protect her, the harm was irrefutable. In that moment, the anxiety that would haunt Vanessa long after Remy had gone was gone. In the weeks that followed their story, I spilled into the courtroom for everyone to witness. The defense downplayed the scenario, calling it an unfortunate moment that SP had gone out of control during an argument between lovers, but the evidence was damning. Vanessa's wounds were incontrovertible physical proof of the brutality she had endured. Witnesses who heard the screaming testified, presenting a terrifying picture of what had unfolded behind closed doors. The most disheartening of all was that Remy was the subject of a tragic tale about her kingdom that was overshadowed by a single outburst. The details gave the media a field day, with headlines jumping from one outrageous assertion to another, each one more obscene than the last. Opinions erupted on social media, with some supporting Remy and asserting that her violent past was just a symptom of trauma, while others denounced her behavior and insisted that her notoriety would not alter it. Although nobody had foreseen it, Massachusetts' own confession was the turning point in her life. Or forgiveness could absolve her of the consequences, but in the end, the harm had already been done. When the judge handed down the verdict, it was apparent that Remy, Massachusetts would pay a severe price for her conduct. Her life was drastically altered by the seemingly lifelong sentence. She had gone from being untouchable, the rap industry's queen, to being imprisoned, where her previous status as a famous, wealthy, and influential person meant nothing. No red carpets were present, no. Her reputation had always been built on her rough appearance, her raw strength, and her tenacity, but in the small space of a prison cell, her persona had no place. In the cramped space of a prison cell, she displayed the same qualities that had made her unbeatable in the rap industry. Her self-assurance, her witty humor, and her fearlessness. Walls that encircled her. She couldn't outsmart the system. She couldn't charm her way out of this. She had to face herself, perhaps for the first time in her life. The anger that had been brewing beneath the surface for so long now bubbled over the pain, regrets, and mistakes. They all rushed in, filling the space that had previously only been occupied by a hardened determination. She was no longer the proud woman who used to rule the charts and walk with the swagger. Instead, she was just another in a state struggling to. She had to face her worst self, the sorrow that gnawed at her from within, the terror that had forced her to stifle her own regrets in the heat of the moment, and the rage that had led her to hurt the woman she professed to love. It appeared that all of the power, fortune, and celebrity she had previously taken for granted had disappeared, leaving only the truth of her deeds to confront. Began to change. She had hurt someone she loved, and no amount of money, fame, or admirers could make that right, so she could no longer deny the depth of her sentiments. She was forced to confront the consequences of her actions in the quiet of her prison cell, the life she had known. The red carpets, the crowds, the lights was gone, but more significantly, she had lost the confidence of her friends, her fans, and, most painfully, the drama, full force, who were accusing Remy of being unfaithful and defending Papo. Last year, it was revealed that Remy, Massachusetts, and Papo had broken up, in case you missed the juicy details. Kirk was not amenable to the rumors that Remy was having an underground fight with Vanessa, the woman she once had a deep love for. He called Remy toxic and accused her of trying to stir the pot even further. He praised Pat for keeping his composure throughout the entire situation while Remy allegedly dipped into affairs with other rappers. What happens when emotions get out of hand? Remy's story turned into a potent lesson on the costs of unbridled rage and the repercussions of evading responsibility. 18 at the same time, Papoose, who has always been known for his steady and composed demeanor, was caught in an emotional storm that he never anticipated. The court's decision to award Vanessa $30 million in spousal support was more than simply a financial blow. It was a turning point in their lives. It was a pivotal moment in their journey that brought to light all of the struggles they have faced together over the years, and it was only about money. Even though they had been through a lot, the foundation was irreversibly damaged this time. It included personal struggles, legal challenges, and the highs and lows of the music business. But Poe had always supported Remy and believed in her future strength and ability. But this was unreal. The paper's number felt substantial, not only because of its magnitude, but also because of what it represented. $30 million was more than just a court win. It was a fresh start for Remy, Massachusetts, an opportunity to start over in her life, career, and perhaps even her in-depth attendance. But while the win was a momentous occasion for him, it also made him think back on all that they had experienced together. He woke up in tears, not out of sadness or anger, but out of a deep sense of relief and pride. He had always understood that Remy had the strength to conquer anything life threw at her, and witnessing her attain this critical milestone overwhelmed him with emotion. In those moments, he felt more than simply pride. He was humbled by how far they had come. He was proud of Remy, pleased with their love, and happy about everything they had experienced together. Although the win was hers, it felt like it belonged to them both at that moment. As Papoose wiped away his tears, he felt the weight of their trip and the depth of their bond. When people talk about Pat and Remy, it's always so sad, right? We can't really know what someone is going through behind closed doors. Therefore, we can't know what occurred between them, even if I like them both, and it's very sad. They would always remember this moment. It was about everything they had endured to get here, not about the money. It was proof of their bond, love, and strength that got them through the most difficult periods of their life. I am aware that I am encore crazy and that Minor encore hard, but I also know that you need the appropriate person. I don't know what actually happened though. You know what I mean and what made everyone act the way they did. Life won't be too hard if you're with the proper person. It will be like having normal ups and downs. However, if you're with someone who isn't right, like Shay, you'll cry and regret what you did. Kirk, you deserve that underscore underscore underscore. They would say, but they would also add, you know what? I love the fact that you love me, bro, because you're with a lot of Kirk Frost. Couldn't just sit back and let Remy, Massachusetts throw shade at Papoose. Kirk jumped when Remy accused Papoose of cheating with boxing champion Clarissa Shields, saying, but if I were in your position, I wouldn't be doing that again. The lady who had once earned respect by sheer determination was now doubting every choice she had ever made. Could she ever be forgiven for her actions if the throne she had created for herself had come to pass? Papoose was close to a rapper by the name of Easy the Block Captain, but their relationship went farther than that. Every time Vanessa closed her eyes, Remy was unable to hear her screams, eat, or sleep. It appeared that Remy was ready to let go of the past when she began seeing someone else. But it wasn't that simple. Remy surprised everyone a few days ago when she revealed that Papoose had reportedly cheated on her with Clarissa Shields. Despite the fact that she had done some of the same things she was accusing him of, she was accused of slandering her. Papoose seems to be trapped in the center of the battle lines, and the drama isn't slowing down. She accused Papo of dozing off and posted a screenshot of a private exchange between him and Clarissa. Although the internet was ablaze, the truth is that while Remy was out having a great time, Papoose was actually engaging in a romantic relationship with another rapper. Remy, Massachusetts has established a reputation as a strict boss who doesn't hesitate to trample on people's toes, as everyone is aware. So let's see what Clarissa had to say. Remy didn't hold back when she said, "You're not the only one." But this time she was starting a fight with someone tougher than her, and Clarissa's shield shot back with a lethal line, "How does a woman with two?" Although I have discussed it previously, the reality is that we can never truly know what individuals are going through behind closed doors, nor can we completely comprehend the reasons behind people's actions or the circumstances that led to things transpiring as they did. I am aware that relationships may be challenging and that marriage can be challenging, but we only see a little part of it. Since I like both of them, you are aware of how regrettable this entire situation is. There is no doubt that patience and the correct attitude are necessary if you want something to last. Even though you will have ups and downs, it won't feel impossible when you're with the right person. But being with the wrong person can shatter you. You'll begin to regret becoming involved. And if you're not strong enough, you may not want to try again, but you'll finally have the will to carry on and give it another go. It is rather clear at this point that a divorce, possibly the best course of action for Papo and Remy, especially in light of how events transpired. To be honest, after everything that has happened, it's hard to see how they could go on. Papoose and Remy's relationship has become increasingly complicated, and Papo has frequently expressed his wish for a divorce, pointing to Remy's recurrent adultery as justification. Reaction: Remy has made her claims that Papo cheated on boxer Clarissa Shields public by disclosing private correspondence. This public back and forth draws attention to the difficulties and complexities of partnerships. Both parties clearly have different points of view, and the matter is still open. Kirk Frost, another rapper, offered his thoughts on the situation, stating that he was not siding with either Papo or Remy Ma, and joking that he was no longer receiving messages from women since they have been acting in a very negative manner. Fans are accusing Remy Mustache of playing the innocent victim when she was the one who started all of this controversy. How do you all feel? Did Papoose receive fair treatment from Remy, Massachusetts? Or are we missing out on further information about this subject from the media? Remy Matt appears to be one of those persons who can't stand to see their ex-partners flourishing. Remy, Massachusetts claims that she is coming across as resentful since she publicly shamed Papoose and allowed him to go on. And now she is furious that he has a new girlfriend. The fact that Remy made Shay too openly tampered with the battle rapper was also brought up. Leave a comment below with your thoughts, and don't forget to watch the next video for more tea. To feel better, A woman who can't let go will try to ruin someone else's name. Furthermore, given that she cheated herself, why is Remy blaming men for doing the same? There appears to be a double standard.